I was bent over my cousin's seating chart at my aunt's dining table when she leaned in so close I could smell her perfume. "No +1 for adoptees," she hissed, tapping her pen straight through my name. For a second my throat went tight, but my hand stayed steady on the place cards. I asked her, very calmly, to say it again so I could be sure I had heard her right. She straightened up a little, like I had challenged her. "+1s are for real family and spouses," she said. "You know that. The adopted ones can come alone, or not at all. It keeps things simple." "The adopted ones," I repeated, like I was trying the phrase on for size. My finger rested on the line where she had just dragged her pen through my name. "So that would be me. And my brother," she sighed, as if I was being difficult on purpose. "You and your brother are already lucky I'm paying for you to be there at all," she said. "I have almost $50,000 in this wedding. I can't be adding random boyfriends and girlfriends to the count." "It said +1 on the save the date," I said. My voice sounded calm even to me. "Just not in the fine print, I guess. That was before we finalized the budget," she said. "Now it is just spouses and blood family. Your cousin's college roommate's fiancé is blood. You are not. You of all people should understand limits." She slid the chart closer to her and circled a cluster of tables near the head table. "This is family," she said. Then she tapped a rectangle way in the back, near the drawn little square for the kitchen doors. "And this," she added, "is where we put the extras." "You put me with the extras," I said. "And my brother." "You will be fine," she said. "You can sit together. You always have each other. It is not like you are alone." I looked at the tiny square with my name and my brother's initials scribbled next to it, right beside the symbol for the swinging kitchen doors. I pictured servers pushing through with trays while we scooted our chairs in to avoid getting hit. It was almost funny, if I did not know she meant it. "What does my cousin think about this?" I asked. "She is leaving the logistics to me," my aunt said briskly. "She trusts me. Somebody has to make adult decisions when other people get emotional. Now, can you please finish labeling these and stop taking everything so personally? It is your house," I said softly. "Your money, your rules." She relaxed a little at that, mistaking my agreement for surrender. She turned away to recap the marker, and that was when I saw the paper on the sideboard. It was half tucked under a crystal bowl, the way she always left things she wanted people to notice without admitting she wanted them noticed. A logo at the top, the venue name in bold, and under it, tidy lines of numbers. I recognized the words before I read them. Total, deposit, balance due, final payment due. I walked over like I needed more place cards. "Is this the venue invoice?" I asked, just curious. She smiled, proud again. "All taken care of," she said. "Total is just under $50,000. I already put down $12,000. They stamped it and everything." She pointed at the red stamp that said, "Balance due," as if that red ink meant paid. Under it, in smaller print, the remaining amount was listed, $37,500 due 3 weeks before the ceremony. The words, "subject to cancellation, if final payment is not received," sat on their own line. "Wow," I said. "That is a lot up front." "It is called being responsible," she said. "I told your mother I would handle everything. Venue, catering, flowers, the works. She does not have that kind of money. I do, so I make the decisions. People who pay get to decide." "Right," I said. "People who pay get to decide." I picked up my phone from beside the seating chart and opened the camera without really thinking about it. "Can I send my mom a picture of the seating plan?" I asked. "She will want to see where she is sitting." "Fine," my aunt said. "Just do not send it to the group chat. It will confuse people. I am still moving some names around." I held the chart up and took one photo long enough for the invoice corner to slip into the frame. Then I stepped back, angling my phone like I was trying to avoid glare, and took another shot that accidentally caught the full page on the sideboard line items. Totals, the red, balance due stamp, and the date next to final payment due by. My aunt had her back to me, fussing with a sample centerpiece. "Maybe I should add candles," she muttered. "Candles make everything look more elegant. People will remember this night for the rest of their lives." "Oh, they will," I said. "What was that?" she asked, glancing over. "I said it will be memorable," I replied. "For sure." She came back to the table and tapped the chart again. "I need you to stop overthinking this," she said. "You and your brother will be there. You will be dressed nicely, and no one will even notice where you are sitting. Just smile and be grateful. This is not about you." "I know it is not about me," I said. "That is the point." She frowned, not quite getting it, and slid a dress bag off the back of a chair. "Your mother dropped this off earlier," she said. Try it on at home. If it needs altering, she can take it to the same seamstress your cousin used. She already paid her deposit, so she will probably give you a discount." "How generous," I said, taking the bag. The plastic crackled under my fingers. My aunt picked up the invoice and tucked it into a drawer without looking at it, like it was already history. "Anyway," she said, "do not embarrass the family with any drama about your +1. You can invite your partner to come take pictures in the park after, if you need attention that badly, but the guest list is set. I am not adding names for adoptees." Something in my chest went very, very quiet. Not broken, just done. "You have made yourself clear," I said. "I will not bring it up again." "Good," she said. "That is all I am asking." I checked that the photos had saved the seating chart, the invoice, the little red stamp that said balance due, the date next to final payment due. I did not zoom in. I did not need to. I worked with invoices all day. My brain could read those numbers upside down and from across the room. I thanked her for including me, kissed her cheek because that is what she expected, and walked to the front door with the dress bag bumping against my leg. In the hallway mirror, my face looked calm enough that even I almost believed it. Outside, the air smelled like cut grass and someone else's barbecue. I unlocked my car, dropped the dress bag across the back seat, and sat for a moment with my phone in my hand, the screen still on the last photo I had taken, the venue logo, a total of almost $50,000, a deposit of $12,000, the unpaid balance that she had just bragged about covering. If people who pay get to decide, I thought, then I needed to decide who would really be paying by the time that final payment due line came up. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel until the fake leather creaked, then forced my fingers to loosen one by one. No shaking, no tears, just math and timing and choices. I walked out of her house with my dress bag on one shoulder and her venue invoice saved in my camera roll. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, the sun was sliding down behind the neighboring buildings, the kind of early evening that made everything look flatter than it really was. I sat there for a minute with the engine off, listening to it tick, and thought about how many times I had been reminded what I cost. My brother used to ask, "Are we real now?" When we were kids, he would crawl into my bed with his stuffed dinosaur after family gatherings, eyes wide in the dark. "They say cousin this and cousin that. Are we real cousins or pretend cousins?" "We are real," I would tell him. "Paper does not change that." The first time I heard, "Well, technically she is not blood," I was 8. My aunt had said it in the kitchen, washing dishes with my mother, like she was correcting a recipe. I had come in for more soda and stopped in the doorway. "I mean, I love her," my aunt had added quickly, once she saw me. "Of course I do, but when it comes to certain things, blood is blood. You understand." My mother had given me that tight, warning smile over the sink. "Go play, honey," she had said. "We are just talking grown-up stuff." Driving home now, years later, I could still hear the clink of plates and the way my aunt had said, "Blood is blood," like it was an actual law, not just something she believed. In my 20s, it shifted from blood to money. My aunt discovered that checks made better leashes than opinions. When my grandmother died, my aunt handled everything. That was how she phrased it in the group chat. "Do not worry. I am handling everything with the estate." She sent a photo of herself outside the lawyer's office, holding a folder like a trophy. Grandma's small house sold for around $190,000. My aunt mentioned that number often, the way some people mention the weather. "The market is wild," she would say at holidays. "We got almost $200,000 for that little place. If I had not pushed the realtor, you all would have gotten so much less." My mother's share came in 2 payments, one check for $25,000, another for $10,000 a few months later. Each time, my aunt made sure the family chat knew about it. "Just dropped off your mom's inheritance," she texted once, adding a picture of the envelope on our kitchen table. "Tell her to be smart with it." She helped with my tuition too, in her own way. "You should be grateful," she had told me in my first year of college, when she wrote a check for $5,000 to cover the gap my financial aid did not. She said it at our dining room table, my acceptance letter spread out like a contract. There are plenty of real nieces who do not get second chances after screwing up their first semester. "I did not screw up," I had said quietly. "I got sick, and I stepped in," she had replied. "Remember that when you are making choices, okay?" Back then I nodded because I thought that was the price of help. A little humiliation, a little interest paid in obedience. Sitting in my car now, with her invoice burned into my screen, I realized she had been writing her own version of a ledger for years. Debits, every time we embarrassed her. Credits, every time she saved us. I carried the dress bag upstairs, hung it on the back of my bedroom door, and set my purse on the table with the habit of someone who has worked too many late nights. My laptop bag still had red tabs sticking out of lease files from work sublease disputes, late fee notices, one tenant who kept insisting the security deposit terms did not apply to him because he was family with the owner. Contracts and compliance had taught me something my aunt never expected, that there was always a difference between what people claim and what is written down. The truth lived in the fine print, not in the brag. I poured water into a glass, sat at the tiny kitchen table, and opened the family group chat. The name of the group, Real Family Only, had been my aunt's joke years ago. It did not feel like a joke anymore. I scrolled back to the engagement announcement, the one she had sent with a photo of my cousin's ring and a line that said, "Engagement dinner next month, family only, no exceptions." At the time, everyone had sent heart emojis and congratulations. I had replied, "Can I bring my partner? Or is it strictly immediate family?" Her answer had come to me in a private message, not in the main chat. "Family only means no dates and no extras," she had written. "You know how expensive this is. Do not make things awkward." "Extras," I whispered now, reading it again. My thumb hovered over the screen. I took a screenshot of the main chat message first, "Family only, no exceptions." Then I captured the private follow-up, "No dates and no extras." My phone made the soft click sound each time, like a camera shutter in a quiet museum. Higher up in the chat, there were other messages I had half forgotten. "Just got back from the attorney's office," my aunt had written during probate. "I am handling Grandma's estate, so you all do not have to stress." Another week, after dropping off that $5,000 tuition check, she had posted, "Just covered a big college bill for someone who needed a second chance. I do it for family, even when they are technically not my responsibility." I remembered staring at that one at 19, wondering if anyone would realize she was talking about me. Some cousins had replied with clapping emojis. One had written, "You are the best. You always step up." That one got a screenshot now too. The more I scrolled, the more a pattern emerged. Anytime someone questioned her or pushed back, the money came up. "I paid for your braces," she reminded one cousin during an argument about caregiving for Grandma. "I covered your rent that one time," she said to another when they turned down a favor. "I am the one who paid for half your car," she told my mother once when my mom asked her to stop commenting on my weight. None of it was illegal. It was just leverage, soft threats wrapped in generosity. Around 9 o'clock, my brother called. The contact name on my screen was just his nickname and a little dinosaur. "Hey," I said, putting him on speaker and setting the phone face up on the table. "How bad was it?" he asked. He did not bother with hello. Mom texted me a bunch of shrug emojis and then stopped responding. She redrew the seating chart, I said. "We are at the back by the kitchen." "Of course we are," he said. I could hear him pacing. A door squeaked somewhere on his end. "Did she say why?" "She said +1s are for real family and spouses," I said. "Adoptees get to come alone, or not at all." He went quiet for a couple of seconds. "She actually said that word?" he asked. "Adoptees?" "Twice," I said, in case I missed it the first time. He let out a low whistle. "You want me to bail?" he asked. "We can both skip it. Go get tacos that day instead. Let her yell at empty chairs." I smiled, even though he could not see it. "I want you there," I said. "But I also want you to see something." "See what?" he asked. "How she reacts when she realizes she is not the only one who can use paper to make people move," I said. "Just trust me for a bit, okay? Do not pick a fight yet. Let her write everything down first." He sighed, but it sounded a little relieved. "You are doing the lawyer brain thing," he said. "Except you are not a lawyer." "Contracts brain," I corrected. "Close enough." When we hung up, I went back to the group chat, scrolling through years of small cuts and big checks, every time my aunt tied affection to a dollar amount or an invitation. I screenshotted the message where she bragged about paying the $12,000 venue deposit. Out of the goodness of my heart. I saved the one where she told my mother, if I were not handling the almost $50,000 wedding, this would be a disaster. By the time I went to bed, my Photos app looked less like family memories and more like an evidence file. 3 mornings later, my phone started buzzing on my desk at work while I was in the middle of highlighting a late fee clause in a commercial lease. The notification banner kept reappearing. Real family only new message from aunt. I flipped the file closed, took a breath, and opened the chat. It was a wall of text. "Okay, everyone," her message started. "Here are final wedding rules so we are all on the same page." Bullet points. She had actually used bullet points. Formal black tie. No exceptions. No children under 12. no matter how cute. Arrive 30 minutes before ceremony time. My eyes skimmed down, half on the lease, half on the phone, until I hit the line that made my hands go numb. +1s are for spouses and blood relatives only. Everyone else comes solo. The cursor on my work computer blinked in the empty margin of a lease summary while I just stared at that sentence. It was one thing to hiss "no +1 for adoptees" across a dining table. It was another to write it down in a family-wide policy. Reactions started rolling in under her message. Got it. From a cousin. Looks great, thanks for organizing. Understood about the kids. No one touched the +1's line. I set my phone flat on the desk, like distance would make it less real, then picked it up again and tapped reply before I could talk myself out of it. Just to confirm, I typed into the main chat, does this mean I cannot bring the partner I have lived with for 3 years? I watched my text sit there with delivered under it. The 3 dots popped up, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, her reply came, also in the main chat. This is about keeping costs down, she wrote. We cannot be paying for every random person people are seeing. Charity cases do not get to set guest policy. The office went a little quiet around me, or maybe that was just in my head. From the hallway, I could hear the copier start up. The usual clank and whir. I typed. So just to be clear, adopted family members who are not married are expected to come alone while blood cousins can bring partners? 3 dots. Pause. You are twisting my words, she wrote. Everyone knows how expensive this is. I have almost $50,000 committed. I am not made of money. If people respected that, we would not need rules. I stared at the number, then at the invoice photo sitting quietly in my camera roll. The one that said total just under $50,000, deposit $12,000 paid. Balance $37,500 due 3 weeks before the ceremony with balance due stamped in red. You told us at your house that the venue was already paid off, I wrote. The invoice on your sideboard showed a deposit of $12,000 and a remaining balance of $37,500 due 3 weeks before the wedding date. Which is it? This time the 3 dots stayed longer. Wow, she wrote finally. You went snooping through my private paperwork? That is disgusting. For your information, I already wired the rest. Just because the paper on the counter had not been updated does not mean anything. I am doing my best here. She followed it with another bubble before anyone else could respond. If people do not like my generosity, she typed, they are welcome to stay home. I will not hesitate to uninvite drama. This day is not about you. My heart did a slow, steady thud in my chest, the way it did when I was about to send a risky email at work. I could have pushed. I could have asked for a wire confirmation, a receipt, a screenshot. Instead, I set the phone down and let the silence sit. Within a minute, my mother's name flashed at the top of the screen in a separate thread. Please stop, she wrote. Do not do this in the chat. She wrote it in the chat, I replied. I am just reading it. This is her daughter's wedding, my mother sent back. Do not ruin it over a +1. We will talk about it later. I am begging you. I could see her, in my head, standing at her kitchen counter with her old phone in her hand, panic outweighing anger. She had spent my entire life trying to smooth me into something my aunt found easier to love. I am not ruining anything, I wrote. I am just not pretending anymore. Please, she replied. Let it go. For me. I did not answer right away. Instead, I took a screenshot of the main chat message with the wedding rules, making sure the line +1s are for spouses and blood relatives only. Everyone else comes solo, was visible along with her comment about charity cases. Then I took another screenshot of her I already wired the rest message, framed neatly under my question referencing the $12,000 deposit and the $37,500 balance due. The timestamp at the top of the screen read a little after 10:30 in the morning. At my desk, under the fluorescent office lights, it felt like I was sitting in 2 worlds at once, one where my aunt's word was law, and one where things were written down and could be tested. On my lunch break, I printed the screenshots on the black and white office printer, just like I printed problem leases. The paper came out warm, the text flattened into neat rows. In the margin next to the +1's line, I wrote, in small letters, explicit discriminatory policy re-adoptees. Next to the part where she claimed she had already wired the rest, I wrote, conflicts with invoice dated, and noted the final payment due date, 3 weeks before the ceremony, along with balance $37,500. The ink from my pen bled slightly into the paper, the way it did when I circled late fee clauses or no subletting lines at work. This was not just family drama anymore. It was a policy she had chosen to write down, and a number she had chosen to lie about. My mother texted again while I was capping the pen. Did you see what she said about uninviting people? She wrote. She will cut you off. She will cut me off. I saw. I typed back. I am not arguing with her. If you are not arguing, my mother wrote, what are you doing? I looked at the printed page in front of me, at my careful notes, at the words my aunt had sent to a chat named, Real Family Only. If she wanted it to be policy, then I was going to treat it like policy. By Wednesday on my lunch break, I was pulling off the main road and onto a gravel drive that ran along the river. My boss thought I was going to pick up a salad. Technically, I did pass 3 restaurants on the way. I just kept going until the trees opened and the venue came into view. It was prettier in person than in the photos my cousin had sent. Old brick, white trim that needed touching up, big windows facing the water. The sign out front leaned a little, like it had been there longer than most of the marriages celebrated inside. Inside, the lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and something baked earlier that morning. I was halfway to the front desk when I heard a man's voice from the back office, low and professional. Hi, this is the events office calling about your remaining balance of $37,500, he said into the phone. We do need that in by the end of the month to keep your reservation from canceling. Please call me back. I stopped just short of the doorway, pretending to study a framed photo of a past wedding. He ended the call with a polite thank you, then stepped out, tucking the phone into his pocket. Hi there, he said when he saw me. Can I help you? I smoothed my face into something neutral. I hope so, I said. I wanted to drop off a card and maybe ask a few questions about the space. I am looking at options for an event. Sure, he said. He came around the desk and offered his hand. I am Dan, the manager. I gave him my first and last name, watching his expression. If he recognized it from the contract he had just called about, he did not show it. What kind of event are you thinking? He asked. Wedding? Party? Corporate thing? Still deciding, I said. Possibly a family event. I figured it would be better to see the place first instead of just going off pictures. He nodded like that made sense. We get that a lot, he said. You want a quick tour? Actually, I said, could I start with just a couple of questions? I work in contracts, and I like to understand how places do business before I fall in love with the chandeliers. He laughed. That is a first, he said. Most people want to see the ballroom before they ask about the paperwork. But sure, fire away. I glanced back toward the office where he had made the call. I heard you mention a balance a second ago, I said carefully. Do people fall behind a lot? He rolled his eyes toward the ceiling, more tired than annoyed. More than we would like, he said. We try to be flexible, but we have to keep the lights on. We usually take a deposit around $12,000 on a full wedding package, and then the balance, which is often in the mid-$30,000 range, has to be in 3 weeks before the date. If it is not, we have a cancellation date we stick to. Sounds familiar, I said, keeping my tone bland. And if they do not pay by then? We send reminders, we make phone calls, we offer payment plans if we can, he said. But if the money is not here by the end of the month, we are supposed to release the date. Sometimes people think we are bluffing. He shook his head and then seemed to remember he was, technically, trying to sell me on the place. Anyway, he added, we are actually in a funny spot as a business right now. How so? I asked. The owners are retiring, he said. They have had this place forever. They have been talking about selling the building instead of just the bookings. It is kind of a package deal, venue plus existing events calendar. My heart gave a small, deliberate thump. Selling the building, I repeated. Like, the whole property? He nodded. We listed it at around $109,000, he said. But between you and me, they would probably take $101,000 for a fast, clean closing before wedding season kicks in. They want out while things are still manageable. $101,000, I said. I thought about my aunt's voice in the chat. I have almost $50,000 committed, and about the invoice in my camera roll with its almost $50,000 total for one day. Is that normal? I asked. For a place like this to go for around that? For this town? For a building this age? Yeah, he said. It needs some updates. Roof work, a little cosmetic stuff. Property taxes are around $9,000 a year, but it is a good little business if someone wants to put in the time. We have steady bookings. People like the river. He walked behind the desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thin stack of papers. We have a basic fact sheet, he said, handing it to me. High-level numbers. The realtor can give you all the details if you are actually interested. The sheet was simple enough. Address, square footage, a list price of $109,000 with a note in the margin about flexible for quick close. rough annual expenses, including that $9,000 tax estimate, average yearly booking income. In the middle, a short paragraph caught my eye. Existing event contracts to transfer to buyer, it said, subject to standard terms. All bookings, subject to non-discrimination policy and timely payment. Non-discrimination policy, I said out loud. Yeah, he said. It is in all our contracts. We do not host events that exclude people based on certain things, race, religion, orientation, family status, that kind of thing. And we require timely payment. Protects us, protects guests, keeps us out of trouble. Family status, I repeated. He nodded. We have it in there because we had a mess a few years back where someone tried to uninvite half their stepfamily and still make us enforce their weird seating chart rules, he said. Lawyer told us to tighten things up. Now it is standard. We have the posted policy by the office door if you want to read it. I glanced toward the wall. There it was, a framed page with the venue's name at the top, a list of protected categories, and a line about reserving the right to cancel events that violated the policy or failed to meet payment deadlines. So if someone booked here and then decided they were going to make up their own rules about who counts as real family, I said slowly, that would be an issue. It could be, he said. Depends how far they take it. We try not to police every family argument, but if it crosses the line, we can step in. And like I said, if they do not pay on time, that is simple. We send one last notice and cancel. Contract is clear. I looked back down at the sheet in my hand, at the line about contracts transferring to any buyer, at the note about all bookings being subject to that same non-discrimination policy and timely payment clause. My aunt's messages flickered through my head like a slideshow. No +1s for adoptees, charity cases do not set guest policy. I already wired the rest. I traced that last line with my finger and asked, as casually as I could, what happened if a new owner did not wish to honor a booking that broke the policy? He did not answer right away. He glanced toward the framed policy on the wall, then back at me. Well, he said, choosing his words, if a client is in breach, that is one thing. Non-payment, clear discrimination that violates our posted policy that gives us room. The contracts say bookings are subject to non-discrimination and timely payment. A new owner steps into our shoes, so they get the same rights and responsibilities. So if the client breaks the rules, I said, the owner can cancel? With written notice? Yes, he said. We cannot just wake up one day and decide we do not like someone's centerpieces. But if they are not paying, or if they are making guests unsafe or excluded in ways that violate policy, we can terminate. That carries over if the building sells. The buyer inherits the calendar, but they do not have to keep bad bookings. Bad bookings, I repeated. People who think the world revolves around their event, he said with a tired little smile. You would be surprised how often that overlaps with late checks. I looked down at the fact sheet again, at the $109,000 with its note about being flexible for a quick close, at the sentence about all bookings being subject to that non-discrimination policy and timely payment. Is there a realtor contact on here? I asked. He tapped the bottom of the page. Right there, he said. Office number, agent's name. They can walk you through the numbers. We usually require earnest money around $10,000 and then the balance at closing. Right, I said. Earnest money, then the remaining $91,000 when everything records, plus closing costs. He looked at me more closely. You said you work in contracts? Property management, I said. Different scale, same headaches. He laughed. Then you know the drill, he said. If you are serious, tell the agent you talked to me. I will vouch that you seemed like you knew what you were getting into. By the time I walked out to my car, the fact sheet felt heavier than it should have. The river was moving slow and brown under the afternoon sun. I sat with the door open, the paper on my lap, and did the math twice in my head before I even turned the key. That night, I ended up where I always did when something felt too big to hold alone, at Maya's tiny apartment, sitting at her kitchen table under the buzzing ceiling light. She was still in her office clothes, sleeves rolled up, highlighters and sticky notes scattered everywhere. A half-eaten container of takeout sat between us. Okay, she said, tapping the fact sheet with the end of a pen. Walk me through why you showed up at my door with a venue brochure instead of wine. Because you are a junior attorney who does small business deals, I said. And because my aunt thinks policy is a toy. Ah, she said. So this is revenge-flavored due diligence. Something like that, I said. She spread out the papers, adding a printed sample purchase agreement she had pulled from her work bag. I recognized the structure. Property description, purchase price, earnest money, contingencies, closing date, Standard representations. Here, she said, circling one section. Assuming they agree to $101,000, you put down $10,000 as earnest money. That sits in escrow. At closing, you bring the remaining $91,000. Closing costs and recording fees are estimated at around $4,300, give or take. So I am looking at roughly $105,300 total out of pocket to close, I said. Plus ongoing costs, she said. Property taxes around $9,000 a year, insurance, utilities, maintenance. But rental income from events can offset that if you do not run it into the ground. She flipped a page. Now, she said, here's the part I thought you might like. In the middle of the agreement, she had highlighted a paragraph in yellow. It referenced transfer of existing event contracts, then a clause allowing the buyer to terminate any existing booking upon written notice if the client is in material breach of payment obligations or in violation of the venue's published non-discrimination policy. Material breach of payment obligations, I read. Violation of non-discrimination policy. Written notice. Exactly, she said. Your aunt's event is an existing contract. She has paid a $12,000 deposit, not the full amount. There is a $37,500 balance due by the end of the month. If she does not pay by the deadline, she is in breach. If she keeps that no+1 for adoptees nonsense in the official guest policy, she is arguably in violation of the non-discrimination clause, assuming adoption and family status are listed. They are listed, I said. I saw the framed policy. Family status, adoption status, the works. Maya sat back, connecting imaginary dots in the air with her pen. So, she said slowly, if you buy the building, you step into the shoes of the current owner. You have the right to demand timely payment and compliance with the non-discrimination policy. If your aunt refuses to pay or refuses to change her discriminatory rules, you would be able to terminate her booking with a letter. You would have to follow the contract terms, give proper notice, maybe offer whatever refund the agreement requires. But yes, you would have that power. Terminate, I said. The word tasted cold and clean. You would not be canceling her wedding out of spite, Maya added. You would be enforcing the same rules she agreed to when she signed the contract. Rules she is currently bragging about breaking in a chat named Real Family Only. I thought about my aunt's voice on the phone with vendors, her bragging texts about almost $50,000 committed, the way she had drawn a little box at the back of the room for me and my brother. This is insane, I said. Buying a building just to enforce a clause. Is it? Maya asked. You have talked for years about wanting out of your job. You said you wanted something of your own. A venue is a small business. This is not just a revenge purchase. It is an investment. Your grandmother left you that money for a reason. My chest tightened when she said, grandmother. I reached for my bag and pulled out the folder I kept buried in the back bank statements. A copy of the inheritance letter. A note from the credit union. Grandma's inheritance is $42,000, I said. I have that sitting in savings. I have another $9,000 in my emergency fund if I stretch. The bank pre-approved me for a line of credit up to $50,000 last year when I thought about buying a condo and then chickened out. So, in theory, Maya said, doing quick math on the back of an envelope, you could cover the $10,000 earnest money, the $91,000 balance at closing, and the $4,300 in closing costs. Using the inheritance and the credit line, you would be tight on cash afterward, but not dead. Tight how? I asked. You would have to keep your day job at least for a while, she said. No big vacations, no splurges. You would need to book events aggressively to cover that $9,000 in annual taxes and all the other carrying costs. But it is not impossible. She underlined line of credit with her pen. And, she added, you would be turning money your aunt thinks she controls into something she cannot touch. She uses checks as leashes. You would be buying the whole yard. I stared at the numbers. $42,000 from my grandmother, who used to tuck adoption articles into my backpack and say, you were chosen. $50,000 in potential credit, offered by a bank that did not care about blood, only whether I made my payments on time. I could actually do this, I said quietly. You could, Maya said. The question is whether you should. This is not nothing. This is catching a falling knife and deciding it should be yours. I do not want to ruin a wedding, I said, hearing my mother's voice in my head. That is what everyone will say, that I destroyed my cousin's day. Maya looked at me over the top of the contract. What do you want then? I ran my finger along the highlighted clause again, the one about terminating bookings for violation of the non-discrimination policy, and pictured the words no+1 for adoptees, printed in a group chat like a rule. I told Maya I did not want to ruin a wedding. I wanted to stop paying for my own erasure. She watched me for a long moment, then capped her pen. "Then you had better make sure whatever you do is something you can live with when the cake is gone," she said. "You have that bridal shower this weekend, right? Go. Watch. Let her be who she is in public. If you still want to sign after that, call the realtor." The bridal shower was at one of those restaurants that lived on social media: exposed brick, hanging plants, cocktails with smoke. My aunt stood at the entrance like she owned the lease, greeting people, directing servers. "Biological cousins up front," she told the host, tapping the reservation list. "We need the big table by the windows. We can put the others." She glanced around and pointed toward a small table crammed near the swinging kitchen doors. "Over there." My brother and I ended up at the little table, our chairs practically brushing the server station. Every time the doors swung, we got a blast of kitchen heat and a view of someone balancing plates. "You okay?" my brother asked, leaning in. "I am taking notes," I said, setting my phone screen up between us. At the main table, my aunt was in her element, lining up gift bags, repositioning centerpieces, waving a server over to adjust chair spacing by an inch. Every real cousin had a place card and a cloth napkin folded like a rose. Our table got rolled silverware and a candle someone had clearly grabbed from the bar. My partner texted that they had found parking and were walking over. I felt my shoulders loosen, just a fraction. When they stepped through the door, holding a bouquet of grocery store flowers like it was crystal, my aunt moved fast. She intercepted them halfway, right where the entryway opened into the dining room. "Oh no," she said, loud enough that the entire front half of the restaurant could hear. "We are not doing this. We are not making exceptions for +1s of adoptees." Conversation at nearby tables dipped, then pretended not to listen harder. My partner froze, the flowers halfway between their chest and the table. "Hi," they said carefully. "It is nice to see you too. This is not a charity banquet," my aunt went on. "We are already at capacity." I sent very clear rules. If every charity case brings a +1, we will be paying double. That is not happening. I stood up from the tiny table by the kitchen and walked over, feeling every eye on my back. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. "You invited me to celebrate your daughter," I said. "They came to drop off flowers and say congratulations. That cost you nothing." She turned to me with a tight smile. "You know the rules," she said. +1s for spouses and blood relatives only. You can see them after, take your little pictures in the parking lot. We are not paying for their dinner. That is why I told them to eat before they came," I said. "They are not staying. They are going to hand your daughter the bouquet, say congratulations, and leave." My partner met my eyes over her shoulder. "I can just go," they mouthed. "Wait," I said quietly. I went back to the table, picked up my phone, and brought it with me. I set it down again between the bread plates when I returned to my seat. Screen unlocked, recording app open, the little red waveform bouncing with every clink of glass. I did not hide it. I did not announce it. At the main table, my aunt launched into one of her speeches. "I have the venue paid in full," she told the cousins closest to her, voice pitched to Carrie. "Catering is paid. Flowers are paid. I wired everything weeks ago. People have no idea what almost $50,000 for a wedding feels like. If anyone does not like my rules, they can stay home and watch it on their phones." My brother's jaw clenched. "You are getting this?" he whispered. "Every word," I said. The server came around with the prix fixe menus, explaining the courses and the included dessert. My aunt ordered extra appetizers for the table, adding a round of specialty cocktails that came in tall glasses with smoke drifting off the top. By the time dessert plates' tiny cakes with edible flowers arrived, I watched the numbers on the printed check from where it sat in the black folder by her elbow. My eyes were used to reading upside down. Food, drinks, tax, service charge. The total landed right around $960. She signed the slip with a flourish. No tip line math problems for this one. The service charge was included. "Worth every penny," she said loudly. "You cannot put a price on doing things properly." I could, actually. I could put exactly $960 on a night where my partner was treated like a trespasser and my place card sat by the kitchen doors. I let her gather her gift bags and her praise. I let her make jokes about charity seats and extras, while my phone filled up with audio. 2 days later, just before 11:30 in the morning, I sat in a very different room. No exposed brick, no cocktails, just a quiet conference room at a title office with a fake plant in the corner and a stack of documents in front of me. The escrow officer, a woman with reading glasses perched halfway down her nose, slid the top pages toward me. "This is the purchase agreement," she said. Purchase price $101,000. Earnest money $10,000, which we have as a cashier's check. Remaining $91,000 to be wired in today. My cashier's check for $10,000 sat on a little glass tray, the ink still fresh from the bank that morning. I had watched the teller confirm the account, read the number out, and circle the amount like a stamp. And the wire? I asked. She showed me the instructions. Your bank will send one wire for the full $91,000, she said. We will confirm receipt before noon. Once we have that, we can release funds to the seller and submit the deed for recording. I already called the credit union, I said. They said it would go out around 11:45. I confirmed the last 2 digits on the account number. She smiled. Perfect, she said. Let us get you signing while we wait. I signed my name more times than I could count: purchase agreement, tax forms, acknowledgments, some document about well disclosures that did not even apply to this property. With each signature, the idea of the hall shifted slightly in my head from my aunt's brag to my building. At 11:48, the escrow officer's computer chimed. She clicked, scanned, and nodded. Wire received, she said. $91,000 from your bank, plus the $10,000 earnest we already had, gives us the total $101,000. I will send confirmation to the seller's side and then cue the deed for recording. So, that is it? I asked. My voice sounded steady, but my hands felt light. Once the county records the deed, yes, she said. But functionally, you are done. The sellers have already signed their side. As of noon today, you will be the owner on record. These, she reached into a file and pulled out a worn folder, are the existing rental contracts that transfer with the property. She slid the folder across the table. Weddings, parties, a couple of corporate retreats, she said. We flagged one as delinquent on final payment. You will see our notes inside. You will want to review them and send your own notices as the new owner. I opened the folder just enough to see the top contract. My aunt's name was there, the venue's name, the event date, the line showing a deposit of $12,000 received and a balance of $37,500 still outstanding, next to a due date at the end of the month. A red note in the margin, in the manager's handwriting, said, called, left message re-overdue balance. At exactly noon, the wall clock clicked forward, and the escrow officer looked up with a small, official smile. Congratulations, she said. As of now, the deed is on its way to recording, and the existing contracts are yours. She handed me a thin manila folder with my copies of the closing documents, and a key ring with a couple of tarnished keys the sellers had dropped off that morning. One for the front door, one for the office, one mystery key I assumed I would discover later. I left the office with a thin manila folder under my arm, and the keys to every door my aunt thought she controlled. I drove straight to the hall. The parking lot was half empty, just a catering van and Dan's sedan under the trees. Inside, the place felt different with the keys in my pocket instead of in someone else's drawer. Dan looked up from the front desk computer when I walked in. Owner, he said, grinning. How does it feel? Like debt and potential, I said. Can we look at the calendar? He laughed. That is the right answer, he said, and waved me back into the office. The office was small, a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet that had seen better years. He pulled up a digital calendar on the screen and then set a paper binder in front of me, flipping to the month circled in yellow. Here is your cousin's weekend, he said, not knowing that I did not need the explanation. He tapped a line with his pen. Wedding, ceremony plus reception, full package. Deposit $12,000 received. Final balance $37,500 due end of this month. Next to it, in red ink, was the reminder I had seen in the file at closing, called, left message re-overdue balance. There have been no further payments, he added. We have 1 unpaid invoice and 2 voicemails. How do you want to handle it? As the contract allows, I said, which means we give them a clear deadline and a choice. He raised an eyebrow. You sure you do not want to give them more rope? They have had rope for months, I said. I want paper. We sat side by side at the desk while he opened a template letter. I took a breath and began to dictate. Date at the top, I said. Then, dear client, this letter serves as formal notice regarding your event booking for date. Our records show that a deposit of $12,000 has been received. The remaining balance of $37,500 is now past due. He typed, his fingers quick. Go on, he said. Under the terms of your event contract, I continued. All bookings are subject to timely payment and compliance with the venue's nondiscrimination policy. This policy includes protections for family status and adoption status, and is posted in our office and incorporated into all agreements. I slid one of my printed screenshots onto the desk, the one with my aunt's group chat message. +1s are for spouses and blood relatives only. Everyone else comes solo. Followed by her line about charity cases, not setting guest policy. Her name was right there at the top. The chat title, Real Family Only, hovering above it. I want to reference this without turning it into a speech, I said. Dan read it, his mouth tightening. Classy, he muttered. We have become aware of statements indicating an intent to exclude guests on the basis of adoption and family status, I said slowly. Keep it neutral. Such exclusion would violate our posted non-discrimination policy. He typed that in too. And then you give them the fork in the road, he said. Accordingly, I said, you have 2 options. I counted them off on my fingers. 1. Pay in full within 7 days of the date of this letter and sign an addendum affirming inclusive guest treatment consistent with our non-discrimination policy. 2. Accept termination of the event contract for breach, effective upon written confirmation, in which case the venue will issue a partial refund of $11,500 from your $12,000 deposit, retaining $500 as an administrative fee, as permitted under the contract. Dan paused. You are being generous, he said. Most owners would keep more than $500 at this point. Generous is a word for it, I said. I just want the numbers to be clean. He added the options, the 7-day deadline, and a final paragraph. If we do not receive payment and a signed addendum within 7 days, we will proceed with contract termination and release the date to other clients. Please direct any questions to the new owner at the contact information below. He turned the monitor so I could read it straight on. How does that look? Like policy, I said. We printed it on letterhead, the venue name at the top, my name underneath as owner. I stapled my aunt's group chat message behind it and, for good measure, a printed copy of the non-discrimination policy with the lines about family status and adoption status highlighted in yellow. At the post office around 3:30 that afternoon, I slid the envelope across the counter and asked for certified mail. The clerk weighed it, typed something into his screen, and said, "That will be $13.62. I handed over my card, signed the little screen, and tucked the green and white certified mail receipt into my wallet. I did not need the tracking number. I just needed proof it existed. Back at the hall, I scanned the signed letter and attachments into the office copier and sent them to the email address on my aunt's contract. Subject line, important, event booking notice. Dear client, I wrote in the body, echoing the paper version. Please see attached formal notice regarding your event. A certified copy has been mailed to the address on file. Sincerely, the new owner. My name and cell number sat under the venue's logo, like they had always been there. I watched the email status flip from sending to sent, then closed my laptop. The family group chat did not explode right away. It waited until evening, when I was standing in my kitchen stirring pasta and my phone buzzed, and then kept buzzing. Some new owner just tried to cancel my daughter's wedding. My aunt wrote in Real Family Only. The words came in all caps, broken into angry bubbles. They claim we violated a policy and did not pay when I already paid every cent. Another message followed. They say we have 7 days or they are taking our date, she wrote. They are discriminating against us and double booking so they can charge someone else more. I will not let this stand. Cousins started chiming in. What? Are you serious? That is insane. Can they even do that? I wiped my hands on a towel and sat down at the table, my dinner forgotten. My aunt sent a cropped photo of the first page of the letter, careful to angle it so the venue name was visible, but my name at the bottom was half out of frame. Look at this, she wrote. They say we violated some non-discrimination policy because of family status. This is outrageous. I could see just enough of the text to recognize my own sentences. Timely payment, non-discrimination, 7 days, options, partial refund of $11,500. I replied once. Can you share the full letter? Front and back? I typed. So we can see exactly what it says? She responded with 3 angry face emojis and, why are you taking their side? I am asking to see it, I said. All of it. Instead of sending more, I attached my own scan of the entire letter, the one I had just emailed her into the group chat. The venue logo, the date, the paragraph about the $12,000 deposit and the $37,500 balance, the highlighted non-discrimination policy, my aunt's no +1 for adoptees message stapled behind it. My name sat there in plain black ink under new owner. I did not comment. I just pressed send and watched the tiny text under the attachment change as people opened it. Seen by mom. Seen by cousin. Seen by bride. The read receipts stacked up one by one under the certified letter attachment, while my aunt kept typing over them, insisting in separate bubbles that she had paid everything, that this was a scam, that they must have double-booked and are trying to push us out. Several cousins slipped into my private messages. "Have you heard about this?" One wrote. "Is this real? This letter is intense," another said. "Are they really saying she cannot exclude adopted family?" I answered all of them the same way. "The written notice speaks for itself," I typed. "I will explain everything when the 7 days are up." Then I opened my phone's clock app and set an alarm for the minute the deadline in my own letter ran out. The alarm went off on my phone 7 days later while I was sitting at my kitchen table, paying my own rent online. The little label I had typed under it flashed across the screen. Deadline. Aunt's payment and addendum. I opened my banking app first, out of habit. There was no incoming transfer, no check deposit notice, no anything. Just my usual numbers and the line of credit balance that now existed because I had bought a building. In the family chat, there were plenty of words from her threats, emojis, a detailed paragraph about calling a lawyer friend, but no screenshot of a wire receipt, no photo of a signed addendum, nothing that looked like compliance. At the hall, Dan was waiting in the office, the delinquent contract already on the desk. "So?" he asked. "Any miracle wires this morning?" "No," I said. "Just more messages about how she already paid everything and we are monsters." He nodded like he had heard that song before. "Then we are at the or else part," he said. "You want to handle the cancellation letter?" "Yes," I said, short and clean. We drafted it together. "Dear client," I dictated, watching his cursor move. "As stated in our formal notice dated date, your event balance of $37,500 remains unpaid, and we have not received a signed non-discrimination addendum within the 7-day cure period," he typed. Then looked up. "Accordingly," I went on, "we are terminating your event contract for breach, effective immediately. In accordance with the contract's cancellation provisions, we will issue a partial refund of $11,500 from your original $12,000 deposit, retaining $500 as an administrative fee." We added one more line. "Our staff and resources are hereby released from any obligation to provide services on the previously reserved date, and the venue may make that date available to other clients." I signed it as owner. Dan printed a check for $11,500, sliding it into a separate envelope with the venue's return address. I watched him wield the pen over the amount line, writing each word, $11,500.00. "Do you want me to mail this, or do you want to hand it to her yourself?" he asked. "Certified mail again," I said. "We are not playing the lost in the mail game." He smiled. "Owner's instructions," he said. "I will take it to the post office on my way home. You sign here for the refund log." I wrote my name in the book where the old owner's name ended and mine began. Then I pulled the paper calendar toward me and looked at the now empty date where my cousin's wedding had once been. "I want to rebook it," I said. He blinked. "Already?" "Yes," I said. "Block it off as community reception. I will send you the exact wording, but make a note now. Adoptive families and foster alumni. Open invitation. Free to attend." "That is different," he said, though he was smiling. "I am budgeting $15,000 on my end," I said. "Food, music, transportation vouchers for people who need help getting here. We will keep the invoices tight, but I want it to feel generous. If I am going to own a hall, I am going to let people like me see themselves in it at least once." "You are the boss," he said. $15,000 buys a good band and a lot of buffet." We penciled it in. My aunt's name was gone from the box. In its place were my own notes. Adoption and foster community reception. Inclusive guest list guaranteed. 2 days later, around mid-afternoon, I was in the office going over vendor proposals when I saw movement on the security monitor. A car I knew too well pulled into the lot, my aunt's dark sedan, followed by the bride's SUV and another relative's compact car. They got out dressed like they were going to a meeting. My aunt in her sharp blazer, my cousin in a white sundress, another aunt trailing behind with a leather folder. "Walk through," Dan murmured, watching the monitor. They must not have read the word terminated closely. I stood up. "Lock the inner office door," I said. "I will meet them in the lobby." We had already put a new notice on the front glass when the ownership changed. Venue name, my name underneath as owner, the business mailing address, and a line about contacting the office for appointments. My aunt reached for the handle, found it locked, and went still when she saw my name on the sign. She pointed at it, her mouth moving. My cousin looked from the door to the lettering, then back at her mother. I walked out to the lobby and unlocked the interior door, opening it before they could start pounding. "Sorry," I said. "We keep the front locked when we do not have events on. Can I help you?" My aunt stared at me like I had walked out of the wrong movie. "What is your name doing on that door?" she demanded. "Ownership and management," I said. "That is what the sign says." "That is a mistake," she snapped. "We have a walkthrough scheduled. We are the wedding party for your biggest event next month. Get the real manager." Dan appeared behind me, calm as ever. "You are speaking to the owner," he said. "She closed on the building at noon last week. I work for her now." My aunt's eyes flicked between us, looking for a crack. "This is fraud," she said. "You cannot just sell a building out from under a booked event. That is why we sent you 2 notices," I said. "The closing, and then the cure letter. And now the termination." I had a folder in my hand, because of course I did. I opened it and handed her copies one by one. The recorded deed with the county stamp, the certified letter about the overdue $37,500 balance, and the nondiscrimination policy, the cancellation notice with today's date. "As of noon on the closing date," I said, "this hall became my property. As of the end of your 7-day cure period, your contract became void because you chose not to pay the balance and not to sign the addendum affirming inclusive guest treatment. You cannot cancel my daughter's wedding," she shrieked. The sound bounced off the lobby walls. Beside her, my cousin looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under her. "Mom," she whispered, "is this true?" My aunt ignored her. "You are doing this because of your feelings," she said to me. "Because you are bitter about being adopted. This is discrimination. You are punishing us." I opened the copy of the non-discrimination policy I had brought, the same one that hung framed in the office. My finger traced down until I found the line I wanted. "This policy," I read out loud, "protects guests against exclusion based on race, religion, orientation, disability, family status, and adoption status. All bookings are subject to this non-discrimination policy and timely payment." I looked up. "You wrote no +1 for adoptees into your own guest rules," I said. "You called us charity cases. You refused to pay the balance by the deadline. This is not about my feelings. This is about your breach." My aunt's face flushed a dangerous red. "We will sue," she spat. "We will tell everyone you ruined your cousin's wedding for attention." "You can tell whatever story you need to," I said. "The paper trail will still be the same." My cousin stepped forward then, her voice small. "Is there anything we can do?" she asked me, not her mother. I softened my tone when I looked at her. "I cannot resurrect that contract," I said. "It is terminated. The staff have been released from that booking, and the date has been partially rebooked for a community event." My aunt gasped. "You rebooked our date?" "Yes," I said, "for adoptive families and foster alumni. But there is one option left for you." They both stared at me. "You can choose a smaller room here," I said, nodding toward the side hall, "for a stripped-down ceremony on the same weekend. No full reception, no huge package. Just chairs, an officiant, and some basic decorations. You will need a new budget and a new bank account. And there is a condition." "What condition?" my aunt snarled. "The guest list must be inclusive," I said. "No +1 for adoptees rule, no charity language. And there will be a written apology to the adoptees in this family, signed by you, acknowledging that what you said and wrote was wrong. That apology will be attached to the new contract." My cousin swallowed. "And if we do not?" she asked. "Then you find another venue and another bank account," I said. "This hall will not host a wedding that treats adopted family as less than real." We stood there in the lobby, 4 people and a stack of paper, the river moving just beyond the glass. My aunt opened her mouth to start another tirade, but I turned my attention to my cousin instead. "I will hold the keys until 10 the next morning," I told her quietly. "After that, the date belongs to someone else." My aunt tried to argue with the heir while we stood there, but the real fight started after they left. That night, the group chat split itself open. Messages stacked on messages, like everyone had been holding their breath for years. "I cannot believe she did this to you," one cousin wrote to my aunt. "Over a wording issue? This is what happens when people weaponize money," another added. "Owning a building does not make you better than us." My phone buzzed in my hand as I sat on my couch, the TV dark. I watched it all scroll by. Then other voices slipped in, quieter but sharper. "She literally wrote, 'No +1 for adoptees,'" one cousin said. "What did you think was going to happen?" "I love you, but this is messed up," another wrote directly to my aunt. "If a stranger venue tried to enforce that rule, we would all be screaming discrimination. Why is it okay just because it is your rule?" Someone else, a cousin who rarely said anything, added, I am not surprised the person who said charity cases do not set guest policy finally met a rule she could not bend. My aunt replied to each of them in a flurry, accusing me of twisting her words, insisting she had already paid everything, claiming I had stolen her venue out of spite. She never once posted a receipt for the missing $37,500. Around 11 that night, my cousin the bride messaged me separately. "Is the offer for a small ceremony still real?" she wrote. "Or was that just something you said to make Mom mad?" "It is real," I replied. "But it comes with the conditions," I explained. "New contract, inclusive guest list, written apology." There was a long pause. I could see the little typing bubble appear, vanish, appear again. "She told me the venue was paid in full months ago," she wrote finally. "I saw the contract today. Deposit $12,000. Balance $37,500 still due." She lied to me. "I know," I said. "I saw the file at closing." Another pause. Then, "If I invited your partner and your brother as honored guests, would you come, even if we do not use the hall?" My throat burned more than I expected. "Yes," I wrote. "If the invitation is from you and your fiancé, not as a bargaining chip for her." "She is saying you ruined the wedding," she wrote. "But she also told me she would rather have it in the backyard than sign any apology. I am tired." "You can still marry him without her rules," I said. "The hall is just a building. You do not need it to get married." By morning, she and her fiancé had made their choice. They booked a permit for a public park, one of the smaller ones with a gazebo that the city rented out for almost nothing more, like $80 for the day than tens of thousands. She sent me a screenshot of the confirmation from the Parks Department with a simple caption, "Same date, different place." My aunt refused to attend the civil ceremony. She called it a stunt and announced she would be hosting the real reception in her backyard a week later. By then, every decent caterer was booked. She ended up paying a small company a last-minute premium around $6,800 for lukewarm food and a rental tent that barely fit into the yard, plus extra fees for a portable generator and rushed delivery. At the park, the air smelled like grass and sunscreen. My cousin stood under the gazebo in a simple dress, her fiancé in a suit that did not quite match but looked like him. The officiant read the vows. The city clerk's form waited on a little folding table. "Will you sign?" my cousin asked my brother and me, holding out the pen. "Of course," I said. We signed as witnesses, our names side by side in ink on a line the city would file away with everyone else's marriages that month. My partner handed over a bouquet they had picked up themselves, no one stopping them at the edge of the sidewalk to say they did not count. My mother came, standing stiffly off to the side at first, then relaxing when she saw there was no drama, just two people promising each other a life. My aunt's car never appeared. Her backyard reception pictures went up on social media later. You could almost smell the cramped heat through the screen, people shoulder to shoulder under a tent, a buffet line snaking past the garage, a chocolate fountain leaning a little to one side. The caption mentioned how emotional it was to throw everything together last minute because of betrayal. I scrolled past and went back to my own calendar. Over the next year, the hall became less about her and more about us. We hosted weddings, sure, but also quinceañeras, retirement parties, 2 small conferences for local teachers. Once a month, I blocked off a Sunday afternoon for something I had not seen in any brochure gatherings for adoptive families and foster alumni. We offered finger food, coffee, a simple dessert spread. Sometimes I dipped into that $15,000 budget I had set aside for the first community reception. Sometimes the events paid for themselves. A nonprofit that worked with older foster youth approached me about a partnership, and we agreed to split the costs for a yearly celebration, my venue fee reduced, their grant money covering the rest. By the second year, the hall was bringing in enough steady bookings that, after paying the $9,000 property tax, the utilities, and the staff, there was still room to set something aside. I sat in the office one quiet Tuesday and decided to do what my aunt never had, use money as more than a leash. I met with a lawyer, one who was not related to me, and set up a small scholarship fund for foster youth and adoptees aging out of the system. We started modestly, 2 awards of $2,500 each per year, earmarked for tuition, certification courses, or tools for a trade. The fund would be fed by a portion of the hall's profits, carved out before I paid myself. We formalized it in a trust. My brother sat beside me in the conference room, my chosen family members on speakerphone. The trust documents named him and 2 of my closest friends as future trustees, not because of blood, but because they had shown up. A few weeks later, I updated my own will. At 10 o'clock one morning, a notary met me at the hall's office, same table, different stack of papers. We went through each page: disposition of personal assets, Instructions for the venue. Continuation of the scholarship fund. I signed. She stamped, logging the time in her book like she did for any other client. There was one more change I wanted, something smaller but heavier to me than any clause about furniture or fixtures. I rewrote the hall's guest policy, the one framed by the entrance. We kept the non-discrimination language: race, religion, orientation, disability, family status, and adoption status. At the bottom, in a new section, I added a line in plain, black type: chosen family welcome. +1s encouraged, especially the ones you fought to keep. Dan hung the updated policy by the front door, smoothing the frame with his hand. You know, he said, most owners just argue about noise ordinances and parking. This is better. It is self-interest, I said. I spent too long being told I was extra. I am not doing that to anyone else. My aunt still came to some holidays, still tried to occupy the head of any table she sat at. The dust around the wedding never fully settled. Some relatives still muttered that I had gone too far. Others quietly booked the hall for their own events and slipped me cash deposits with grateful eyes. The next time my aunt tried to sneer about adoptees, I just looked at her across the table and remembered the moment. At noon, when $101,000 bought me something she could never afford: the right to decide who counts as family.